The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly around the research vessel as it drifted near Jupiter's moon Europa. Inside the cramped communication room, Jae-woo Park sat hunched over his console, fingers dancing across holographic controls. Most of the crew were asleep, leaving him alone during the late-night monitoring shift. A sudden burst of static caught his attention. Jae-woo adjusted the frequency, thinking it was just another equipment glitch. The vessel's systems were old, and random interference was common during deep space missions. He didn't realize that this moment would change human history forever. Bored and tired, Jae-woo did something unexpected. He pulled up a collection of comedy clips stored in the ship's personal entertainment database, a collection he had secretly loaded during their last Earth resupply mission. The clips were a mix of stand-up comedy, internet memes, and ridiculous viral videos that had made him laugh during long, lonely nights in space. Without thinking, he accidentally hit the wideband transmission button. The comedy routine began broadcasting across multiple frequencies, mixing with the ship's scientific data streams. A comedian's joke about awkward social interactions blended with atmospheric composition readings. A silly cat video intertwined with radiation measurement graphs. The transmission traveled at light speed, passing through the vast emptiness of space. Unknown to Jae-woo, the signals were being picked up by advanced communication arrays far beyond human understanding. What seemed like a harmless mistake was about to become humanity's first genuine interstellar communication. At the same moment, deep within a massive space station belonging to an advanced galactic civilization, communication analysts were monitoring routine space channels. Their sophisticated tracking systems began picking up the strange, scrambled transmission. The mixture of human humor and scientific data created a signal unlike anything they had ever encountered. Jae-woo realized his mistake moments later. His eyes widened as he saw the transmission logs, showing the signal had been broadcast across multiple frequencies. He felt a moment of panic, wondering if he would be reprimanded for accidentally using official communication channels for personal entertainment. Little did he know that his accidental broadcast would become the most significant moment in human communication history. The galactic civilization receiving the transmission was about to experience something completely unexpected, a glimpse into human culture that was both bizarre and fascinating. The ship's computer systems remained calm, recording the transmission as just another routine data stream. Jae-woo nervously looked around, hoping no one had noticed his mistake. He quickly tried to delete the transmission logs, but a small part of the data remained stored in the backup systems. Outside the ship, Europa's icy surface reflected the distant sunlight. Jupiter's massive form loomed in the background, a silent witness to this unexpected moment of interstellar communication. The research vessel continued its slow drift, unaware of the massive changes about to unfold. In the vast communication centers of the alien civilization, analysts began the process of decoding the strange transmission. Their advanced translation algorithms started working, attempting to make sense of the bizarre mix of human comedy and scientific data. What they would discover was beyond anything they could have imagined. Jae-woo Park, a simple communication officer on a routine research mission, had no idea that his moment of boredom and accidental button press would become the first real contact between humans and an advanced galactic civilization. The universe often works in mysterious ways, and sometimes the most significant moments happen by complete accident. As the transmission continued its journey through space, it carried with it a unique representation of human culture, random, unpredictable, and filled with unexpected humor. The stage was set for a first contact scenario that would challenge everything both civilizations understood about communication, culture, and connection. In the heart of the Galactic Imperial Communication Center, a massive circular room hummed with advanced technology. Holographic displays flickered with countless data streams, and rows of alien analysts worked tirelessly, monitoring millions of cosmic communication channels. Hyun Kim, the lead communication analyst, sat at the central console, her tentacle-like appendages moving swiftly across complex control panels. The strange transmission had arrived 3 standard galactic cycles ago, and it still confused everyone. The communication team had spent countless hours trying to make sense of the bizarre signal. It wasn't a standard distress call, diplomatic message, or scientific data stream. Instead, it was a completely incomprehensible mixture of sounds, images, and random information. Hyun Kim's translation algorithms kept failing. Every time they attempted to decode the transmission, the computer systems would either crash or produce nonsensical results. Sometimes the computers would suddenly start making strange sounds that resembled what the transmission seemed to contain. Laughter. The senior administrators were growing increasingly frustrated. They had never encountered a communication signal quite like this before. The Galactic Empire had been monitoring space communications for thousands of years, and nothing had ever challenged their advanced translation technologies like this single transmission from an unknown source. Senior analyst Ki-woo Park stood behind Hyun, watching her work. "What do you think it is?" he asked, his multiple eyes blinking in a pattern that showed confusion. Hyun simply shrugged, a gesture she had learned from studying human communication databases. The transmission contained what appeared to be a comedy routine. A human was telling jokes about awkward social situations, and somehow, this was mixed with scientific data about planetary compositions. The alien analysts found themselves both frustrated and strangely entertained. Young analysts would gather secretly during their break times, trying to understand the transmission. They would play the audio repeatedly, attempting to make sense of the human humor. Some found themselves unexpectedly laughing, a reaction that was quite unusual for their typically serious species. The Galactic Imperial Communication Bureau called an emergency meeting. Representatives from various departments gathered to discuss the mysterious transmission. Some suggested it might be a complex encryption method. Others believed it could be a new form of psychological warfare. A few radical thinkers proposed that it might be a genuine attempt at communication. Hyun Kim continued her work, running multiple analysis protocols. She noticed something interesting. The transmission seemed to carry genuine scientific information beneath the layer of humor. The planetary composition data was actually quite accurate, hidden within the comedy routine. The communication center became a place of speculation and wonder. Rumors spread quickly about the strange transmission. Some called it the laughing signal, while others referred to it as the human puzzle. The entire galactic communication network was abuzz with discussions about this unexpected message. Imperial communication protocols demanded a thorough investigation. They needed to understand the source of the transmission, its meaning, and its potential implications for galactic communication. No one had ever seen anything quite like this before. Hyun Kim realized that this transmission represented something more than just a random signal. It was a window into an entirely different way of communicating, one that combined information, emotion, and unexpected humor in a way their civilization had never considered. As days passed, the transmission became a topic of fascination. Analysts worked around the clock trying to crack its code. The more they analyzed it, the more complex and intriguing it became. What had started as a mysterious signal was slowly transforming into a potentially groundbreaking moment of interstellar communication. The Galactic Empire was about to learn that sometimes understanding doesn't come from complex algorithms or advanced technologies. Sometimes it comes from being open to something completely unexpected, like a random comedy routine from an unknown species floating through the vast emptiness of space. Hyun Kim smiled to herself. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to make first contact with a civilization that would change everything they understood about communication, humor, and connection. The massive diplomatic ship of the Galactic Empire approached Earth's solar system with careful precision. Captain Seok stood on the bridge, his multiple sensory organs scanning the vast darkness ahead. The transmission they had been analyzing for weeks had both confused and intrigued the entire Imperial leadership. Communication systems aboard the ship continued to malfunction whenever they attempted to process the original human signal. What should have been a standard first contact approach had become something entirely unexpected. The ship's most advanced translation technologies seemed to short-circuit when trying to decode the strange mixture of comedy and scientific data. Junior Communication Officer Jae Min watched the ship's main display with growing confusion. The closer they got to the source of the transmission, the more bizarre the readings became. Instruments that were supposed to provide calm, logical data instead seemed to be creating random bursts of what could only be described as laughter. Captain Siok remembered the emergency briefing before their departure. The Imperial Communication Bureau had been unable to provide a clear explanation of the transmission. Some analysts believed it was a complex encryption method. Others suggested it might be a form of psychological warfare. A few radical thinkers proposed it was a genuine attempt at communication from an unknown civilization. The ship's approach to the solar system was carefully calculated. They had studied Earth from a distance for years, but never attempted direct contact. The unexpected transmission had changed everything. What was supposed to be a routine observation mission had transformed into a potential first contact scenario. Navigation systems began picking up more detailed information about the transmission's origin. It had come from a small research vessel near Jupiter's moon Europa. The location was unexpected. Not a major communication center, but a seemingly random point in space. Crew members whispered among themselves. The transmission they had been analyzing was unlike anything in the Imperial Communication Archives. It mixed scientific data with what appeared to be human attempts at humor. Each time they played the recording, something new and unexpected emerged. As the ship drew closer to Earth, communication protocols became increasingly complex. Captain Siok knew that this moment could define interspecies relations for generations. One wrong move could mean conflict, misunderstanding, or worse. The bridge crew worked with intense concentration. Every system was on high alert. They had prepared for countless first contact scenarios, but nothing could have prepared them for this unique situation. The transmission continued to challenge everything they understood about communication. Jaemin noticed something strange happening to the ship's communication systems. Whenever they tried to analyze the original transmission, the computers would produce unexpected results. Sometimes they would generate what seemed like random jokes. Other times, they would create complex scientific equations mixed with comedy. Routines. Captain Siok watched the main display, his multiple eyes blinking in a pattern that showed deep concentration. The approach to Earth was delicate. They needed to understand the source of the transmission before making any direct contact. The Imperial leadership had been clear. This was a mission of discovery, not confrontation. The ship's external communication arrays began sending out careful probing signals. They were attempting to establish a basic communication link, hoping to understand more about the source of the mysterious transmission. Each signal was carefully crafted, designed to minimize potential misunderstandings. As they entered the outer regions of the solar system, the crew felt a mix of excitement and tension. This was not a typical diplomatic mission. This was something entirely new. A first contact scenario triggered by an accidental transmission that seemed to defy all known communication principles. Jaemin suddenly noticed something on his console. For a brief moment, the ship's systems displayed what appeared to be a human joke about space exploration, mixed with precise planetary approach coordinates. He blinked, wondering if he had imagined it. Captain Siok knew they were about to make history. Whatever waited ahead would change everything they understood about communication, civilization, and the vast possibilities of the universe. The United Nations headquarters in New York had been transformed into a secure meeting zone. Ambassador Jun Lee stood near the massive circular conference table, his crisp diplomatic suit feeling slightly uncomfortable. Across from him, the alien delegation waited. Tall, slender creatures with multiple sensory organs and complex communication devices. Initial moments were tense. The room felt heavy with expectation. Translators hummed softly, ready to convert every potential communication. No one knew exactly what to expect from this first face-to-face encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization. Captain Siok from the alien delegation approached first. His movement was calculated, precise. Human. Security personnel watched carefully, hands near hidden communication devices. The alien's multiple eyes scanned the room, processing every small detail. Unexpectedly, The tension began to break when the translation system started malfunctioning. Instead of providing serious diplomatic translations, the devices began producing comedy routines. A joke about bureaucratic inefficiency suddenly emerged during an intense diplomatic statement. The room fell silent for a moment. Ambassador Jun Lee felt sweat forming on his forehead. This was not how first contact protocols were supposed to work. The alien delegation looked equally confused. Their sophisticated communication systems were generating random human comedy clips alongside attempted diplomatic statements. One of the alien delegates accidentally triggered a stand-up comedy recording. The room filled with unexpected laughter. What should have been a serious moment of interstellar diplomacy was turning into something completely different. Human representatives looked at each other, unsure whether to be shocked or amused. Captain Siok's communication device suddenly started playing a comedy routine about cultural misunderstandings. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. Humans and aliens found themselves laughing together, the complex barriers of language and culture momentarily dissolving. Communication became a strange dance of misunderstandings and unexpected humor. Every time someone tried to make a serious statement, the translation systems would interrupt with a joke or a comedic observation. It was as if the universe was deliberately creating a moment of shared amusement. The security personnel, trained for countless diplomatic scenarios, found themselves completely unprepared. Some were trying to maintain professional composure, while others were struggling to control their laughter. The alien delegates seemed equally bewildered and entertained. Ambassador Jun Lee realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just a first contact scenario. It was a unique moment of connection. The unexpected humor was breaking down barriers faster than any diplomatic protocol ever could. Captain Siok's communication device suddenly produced a joke about space exploration. The room erupted in laughter. Humans and aliens who moments ago were strangers from different worlds now found themselves connected through something universal, the ability to find humor in complex situations. Diplomatic notebooks remained unopened. Carefully prepared speeches sat forgotten. Instead, the room became a space of unexpected communication. Jokes were exchanged. Cultural misunderstandings turned into moments of shared amusement. The translation systems continued their strange performance. Scientific data would mix with comedy routines. Serious diplomatic statements would be interrupted by unexpected punchlines. It was as if the universe was conducting an elaborate experiment in communication. As hours passed, something remarkable happened. The initial tension dissolved completely. Humans and aliens began to understand each other not through complex diplomatic language, but through shared laughter. Cultural differences seemed to melt away in the face of unexpected humor. By the end of the encounter, something unprecedented had occurred. The first interstellar diplomatic meeting had become a comedy of errors, a moment of unexpected connection that no one could have predicted. The transmission that started it all, the random comedy routine mixed with scientific data, had accomplished what years of diplomatic training could not. Ambassador Jun Lee and Captain Siok looked at each other, realizing they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Laughter, it seemed, was the most powerful form of communication in the universe. The final diplomatic meeting took place in a specially designed chamber at the United Nations headquarters. Representatives from both human and alien civilizations gathered, still carrying the lingering humor from their previous encounter. What had started as a potential interstellar incident had transformed into something entirely unexpected. Ambassador Jun Lee sat at the center of the human delegation. Beside him, Captain Siok represented the Galactic Empire. The treaty documents lay on the table, but everyone knew this would be no ordinary diplomatic signing. The strange communication that brought them together had fundamentally changed their approach to first contact. Translation devices had been specially modified after the previous meeting's comedy-filled encounter. However, everyone knew that complete predictability was now impossible. The devices seemed to have developed a mind of their own, capable of finding humor in the most serious situations. As the first draft of the treaty was read, the translation system began inserting unexpected comedic commentary. A serious statement about interstellar cooperation would suddenly be interrupted by a joke about bureaucratic processes. The room would fill with suppressed laughter, diplomats trying to maintain their composure. The treaty itself became a unique document. It wasn't just an agreement between two civilizations. It was a celebration of communication in its most unexpected form. Clauses about scientific exchange were written with subtle humor. Diplomatic protocols included provisions for cultural misunderstandings that might arise from their newfound communication style. Captain Siak realized that humanity had discovered something profound. Their ability to find humor in complex situations was not a weakness, but a sophisticated survival mechanism. The Galactic Empire had never encountered a civilization that could transform potential conflict into connection so quickly. One of the most significant moments came when the final treaty was being signed. The translation device suddenly produced a stand-up comedy routine about intergalactic diplomacy. Representatives from both sides found themselves wiping tears of laughter from their eyes, tears that represented both humor and a genuine connection. The document they were signing was unlike any previous interstellar agreement. It recognized humor as a legitimate form of communication. Scientific exchanges would now include cultural comedy workshops. Diplomatic training would incorporate lessons on understanding humor across different civilizations. Outside the meeting room, news was spreading across both civilizations. Humans were celebrating their unexpected diplomatic success. The Galactic Empire was processing a completely new approach to interstellar communication. Media outlets on both worlds struggled to explain what had happened. Jae-woo Park, the communication officer who had accidentally started everything with his random transmission, watched the proceedings on a secure broadcast. He couldn't believe that his moment of boredom had led to this historic event. His supervisors, who had initially been frustrated, now treated him like a hero. The treaty signing became more than a diplomatic event. It was a celebration of unexpected communication. Representatives told jokes, shared stories, and recognized the profound connection they had discovered. The barriers between two completely different civilizations had dissolved through laughter. Captain Siak gave a final speech that captured the essence of their encounter. He spoke about how humor transcends language, culture, and even the vast distances of space. The Galactic Empire had learned that true communication was about more than just exchanging information. It was about finding common ground. Ambassador Jun Lee responded with a statement that would be remembered for generations. "We came together not through our similarities," he said, "but through our ability to laugh at our differences." The translation devices, predictably, added a perfectly timed comedic punctuation to his statement. As the final documents were signed, something remarkable happened. The translation devices began playing a montage of comedy clips, a reminder of how this entire journey had begun. Humans and aliens alike found themselves laughing together, a sound that echoed through the halls of diplomatic history. The universe had witnessed something extraordinary. Two civilizations had found each other through an accidental transmission, a series of misunderstandings, and ultimately, the universal language of laughter.